Stay tuned as Speaking of Spirits talks about the most famous poltergeist haunting in all of England. Hey everybody, this is Colleen with Speaking of Spirits, and I'm here with my sidekick Kelly.
Hello everybody, how's it going?
We are going to talk about the Enfield haunting today, or the Enfield Poltergeist. This story took place in 1977 through 78 in Enfield, England. And it is probably one of England's most notorious poltergeist activity. Certainly not the only one in England, but it is probably the most notorious one because of the amount of people involved in this case. So it started in August of 1977 in the Hodgson house. There's Peggy is the mom, and there's Janet and Margaret and a little boy. With Janet being the younger daughter, I think she was 11 years old during the time the activity started. And I am going to show you, when I can find it, a picture of the house. So the house is a duplex. It's, here we go. Let me get it up here. It's a duplex, and it is, it's not, an overly large house. It's a 2-story house. Let me share the picture. So there you go. It's one half of the house. So you can see that. Nothing spectacular about the house. They said that they didn't have any prior knowledge of any kind of hauntings that went on in the house. When they moved in, they rented it. And so the activity started, I think, generally around in the girls' bedroom. They shared a bedroom, 2 twin beds up against the side of the walls. And as the activity started, and the girls later admitted, I think years later when they were adults, that the activity started because they used the Ouija board. Now, we've talked about the use of the Ouija board before, and, our team really, and maybe I'm not speaking for my whole team, but I feel like it's a tool. I don't think that there's anything inherently bad about it. I do believe it is a tool, but when you use it, it can open doors. And sometimes when you're screwing around with stuff you don't understand, you invite things into your home.
Yeah, from what I heard, you need to have someone that's knowledgeable in that field, because if you just start messing around with it, it's not like you ask for one particular guest. It's more like they SWAT kick the door open, and all that, you can get all sorts of nasty through that board. So
yeah, so I think the activity, there's different accounts of what exactly started first, but I think initially Janet said she would feel her bed shake, and it would, rattle off the floor a little bit, and that's disturbing. And then her dresser bureau would slide and move on its own accord. Now, she and her sister are sharing the bedroom. I can imagine that Margaret's probably like, Janet, what are you doing? And Janet's going, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So they would push the bureau back, tell their mom about it. And then, so the activity kept going. Knocking, rapping sounds. The bureau kept sliding. Chairs were sliding. So Peggy, the mom, called in her neighbors and said, can you guys help us figure this out? Because we don't know what's happening. You would, right? You're trying to investigate what's happening here in your own house. So they called, when the neighbors came in, they couldn't find the source of what was happening. Obviously, they don't know what's happening. So then they called the police, and I am going to tee up this video Let's see. It's okay. See if I can get it to play here. This software that we have doesn't necessarily like it when I have multiple tabs open. Here we go. So let's play this video.
Nearly a ½ inch, I should say. And I saw it slide off to the right, about 3.5 to 4 feet before it came to rest. I checked to see whether or not it could possibly have slid along the floor. I placed a marble on the floor to see whether or not the marble would go as the chair did. It didn't roll at all. I checked for wires, the cushion of the chair, and I could find information.
Okay, so that is the interview with the police that I found so interesting. That, this police officer's looking for, how are this family faking it? They're checking for wires. And was there something on there, like, fishing string or something to move the chair about? And they couldn't find the source of how objects were moving in the house. Okay. It's not really a police job.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So later on, they found a heat register, or I can't remember what they called it, like a stove or something like that, and it was ripped out of the wall. It's cast iron with a metal pipe, and they're like, there's no way anybody could have moved this, and especially little girls.
I don't remember that. It could have been. I didn't read that. So the family, Peggy, ends up calling the Daily Mirror. Now, the Daily Mirror is a newspaper in England. And they sent a reporter over. Fascinating that they sent a reporter over, but they did. And the reporter sits there for about 4 hours and nothing happens. And so as he's getting up to leave, because he thinks the whole thing's a giant hoax, a Lego comes flying across the bedroom or the room that he was sitting in and beans him right in the head. And so he's got, I don't know if it cut him, but he's definitely got a mark. He thought, wow, this is real, because that's the thing with activity, and anybody who knows who's had any kind of activity in their home, it doesn't happen on cue.
No, and that's I think that's what usually happens is skeptics go in and they're like, well, I guess nothing's gonna happen. I guess this is fake, and whatever's in the room is just like, oh really? Here, and tosses something at him.
Yeah. So this guy goes back to this newspaper and says, wow, something happened, and tells them what happened. And they thought fascinating. And so they called in the Society for Psychical Research. Now, so let's just call that SPR, because I don't think I can say that one twice. And so I think his name is Maurice Gross. He comes over, and now, Maurice is kind of a fascinating man. He was in World War II in artillery for England. And when he gets back from the war, he becomes an inventor. And one of the things that he invented was, I don't know if you've seen him, but we do have him here in the US too. He invents it's like, it's fastened to a bus stop bench. Like, how you have sometimes they're encased in glass for the weather and the elements. And it has like a scrolling advertisement that it's within the glass. And so it looks like posters, but they will actually move. So you can have like a series of advertisements, posters, as people are sitting there waiting for the buses. So that's kind of clever. So he does a lot of he's a really smart man and comes up with all these fascinating inventions if you kind of Google him and find out what he was about. But he's also really fascinated with psychic research. And so he, sorry about the background noise. I have dogs chewing on bones now. Dogs are like 3-year-olds. Anyway, he comes in, and I think you said, Kelly, that he kind of moved into the house for like a year and a half or 14 months or something.
Yeah, 14 months, a little over a year.
Yeah.
He was over there all the time.
Yeah. So he's got cameras set up. He's got reel-to-reel tape recorders set up. He's living in the house because he was so fascinated with the amount of activity that's going on there. Now, a lot of people say as this poltergeist activity continued that Janet was possessed. I went back and I've watched a lot of the tapes, and I'm not sure she was possessed so much as she's a medium and something speaking through her. That's kind of different than possession, because possession is completely taking over the body. And there's not, I mean, as possession goes forward, it doesn't just generally stop. Where with Janet, with all of this activity, there's a big bell curve with poltergeist activity, and it came way down and almost ceased. Not completely. They had other stuff happen after the poltergeist activity stopped, but something did speak through Janet, unless she was faking it. But we'll play some tapes here, and you guys can decide. What are your thoughts, Kelly?
I don't know. There were some other investigators that showed up, and they were part of a different team. And one of them was saying that she was using false vocal cords, like a ventriloquist, with the possession thing. Like you go like this, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, are they faking it? But they started asking it questions, and it sounded like the voice said that he was in a chair and died in the home in a corner of the house. So now, how would she know that?
Right. Well, I don't know. Was that proven? I don't know if that was proven or not. There was a writer who joined Maurice during this investigation, and his name was Guy Lyon Playfair, and he was really kind of a non-believer. I think he was a huge skeptic when he went to the house, and it seemed like he didn't buy into the whole haunting business at first. But then he witnessed so many things happen that he ended up writing a book called This House is Haunted, about his experiences in the house. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of one of the things that happened to Janet. And some people say she was jumping on the bed. But if you look at this picture, what am I doing? Starting programs I didn't mean to start. If you look at the picture, on her back, it almost looks like something's pulling her nightshirt. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not completely rounded like her spine would be. And this is the actual Janet. And there were cameras in the room. Now, I don't know why some of this footage I don't know why they didn't release some of this footage. I haven't found it if they did. Some people say, hey, she was jumping on the bed, but what looks like to me is like something's grabbed her nightshirt and is pulling her backwards off the ground. Yeah, not that she's jumping forward.
Yeah, apparently she was really good in sports in school. So that was that's one of the theories. But if I'm looking on the bed, if she was jumping on the bed, there would be circular imprints where her feet should be before she jumped.
Yeah, right? You would think there would be depression marks there. Yeah.
But
she was definitely the center of the activity. I felt bad for her. She definitely was put through the ringer there for a while. There was something else that happened, and I want to show this other picture to you because this is a picture that happened that it appears to me like she was like flung up on this bureau. Let me get to it here. And I mean, not only is it terrifying, but physically, that's going to hurt. Now, you can see somebody walking up to her. I don't know if that's Maurice, but you can see somebody walking up to her to try to help her down.
I think that's Lyons.
Is that Lyons? I can't.
Or no, Playfair. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a lot of things that happened to her. Now, one of the things that, so voices were apparently definitely coming through her. And typically that's, okay, so let's back up. Ed and Lorraine Warren, who is the demonologists that were from Connecticut, they were part of the Amityville Horror, and they researched a lot of cases for the Catholic Church. They'd gone to Enfield twice or 3 times. It's debatable how many times they went there, right around the end of the activity. But they did say that, in their opinion, Janet was possessed. Now, possession is total control, takeover of the body. I don't think she was possessed from everything that I've read about Janet. It was more like she's a physical medium and things were coming through her. This gentleman who said his name was Bill Wilkins, who said he had died in the chair, seemed to come through her. That's different than possession.
Yeah,
so
before this Bill character showed up, what was his name? Not Playfair, the other gentleman.
Who, Maurice?
Yeah. Oh, gross. Yeah. He heard barking coming through Janet.
Yep.
And he's like, And then I guess he asked a question like, who are you? And then Bill showed up and started talking through her.
We have a video of that. So let's share this video. Okay. So this video here, it's not video, but it's audio of it.
Dr. Belloc, come on, let me hear you say that. Come on, let's hear you say Dr. Belloc.
Well, let's go back a little further to the barking.
Come on, my name's Morris, let me hear you say it. Morris. Say Dr. Belloc. Come on, let me hear you say that. Come on, let's hear you say Dr. Belloc. Could you close that door? Say Dr. Belloc. What is it? Now, if you squeak the bed, I can't hear you talking. Now, say Dr. Belloc. Come on. Come on, say it for me, Dr. Belloc. Dr. Belloc. Right, that's good. Shut the door. I'm 72 years old. I come from Jewel Mark graveyard. And I have right near the church where Rita lives. And all my friends come from there as well. And we all make a game and go to the pub. And then we pick your house. Because I used to live here. And I will tell you some more. And if you don't tell anyone else.
So, is that her messing with her vocal cords? It could be. It could be. I don't know.
Now, I got a question. I wonder if there was any activity when they are outside the house, or do you just poltergeist activity stay in one general area? Because if she is a physical medium, then that could happen anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Poltergeist activity, all of the cases that we've been involved with has been localized to the house, but we do have one family where it moves with them back and forth to their other home in Arizona, I think. So I don't know, because it's centered around the person, but usually people aren't, I don't know. That's a really good question. I've never heard of it like going to school with them or whatever. It's at the home. I don't know if it has to be. That's actually a fascinating thought. Is why doesn't poltergeist activity happen all around them all the time? Maybe it's where you're comfortable and your guard is down.
I guess, because I couldn't imagine going to Walmart or something like that and going down the cereal aisle and then all of a sudden just boxes just come flying off the shelves.
Actually, it'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? As people are screaming, running out of Walmart.
Yeah,
but you're right.
They're screaming and running away, and you're just like wheeling your cart down, and they're like, "Well, aren't you scared?" And you'd be like, "No, that's Joe. He follows me around."
So that Dr. Baylock or whoever, he was somebody who was called in, I think, by Maurice or Guy. Somebody called in. There were a lot of different investigators that came into this house. It wasn't just Maurice and Guy. There were a lot of teams that came into this house. There were a lot of researchers that came into this house. I would love to have been part of that. To try to either debunk it or witness the activity. From every account that I have read, after these sessions with Janet, she was wiped out and terrified when she'd come back to herself. Like she was literally, legitimately scared during these episodes because I don't think she had any memory of what was happening, but she felt funny. I mean, if she's truly got something coming through you, you would be exhausted after that.
Yeah, I'm just picturing the movie Ghost when Whoopi Goldberg is doing her psychic thing, and she's doing her thing, and when these ghosts just jumps into her body, and they talk, and then she kicks them out, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so tired," or whatever it was. So
yeah. So I have a few more a little bit more of the EVP sessions that I'll play for you. Here is one of them. So let's play these.
You're invisible. Why are you invisible?
Because I'm a GHOST. Yes, he had quite a sense of humour. He also used to swear a lot as well.
I don't know what this footage is that's playing right now, but it was, that's weird. We will. So it was.
I have to fast forward a little bit.
Oh, maybe. Let me see. Yeah. Anyway, so here's part of an interview with him. So let me share this and see what he says. Now, is this Maurice? I think.
I think so. That's Maurice Gross with this tape recorder. Yeah.
But by the false vocal fold, which is above the larynx. And you only use that when you lose your voice and you talk like that. Well, if you talk like that for more than a couple of minutes, you start getting a sore throat. Talk like that for 5 minutes or so, and you're going to start doing damage to your throat. And yet this voice used to speak up to 3 hours at a time. Not continuously, of course, but up to 3 hours at a time without the girl showing any distress at all. Absolutely remarkable. The voice was just part of it. The girl levitated, going from horizontal to vertical in a sixth of a second. Furniture was thrown around the rooms. The house was swarming with journalists. But after 4 days, they were baffled and frightened and called my team for help. A policewoman gave a sworn affidavit of the extraordinary activity.
Yeah, so fascinating stuff right there.
Okay, the voice thing. It just dawned on me that could she, I don't know if she would know what that is, but maybe I don't know. Maybe she found a book on like ventriloquism or voice training or something like that. Because I listen to heavy metal and stuff and music like that, and death metal singers, they growl and they growl and they growl and they growl, and then after the concert they're fine. Their vocal cords are fine, but they have to do training. Because he's
yeah,
right. Because you do it up to 3 hours. You do it up to 3 hours, and you'll blow those things out. And people have to get surgery for it
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. So they're definitely training their voices so that they can handle it. But I wonder what their vocal cords sound like when they're like 60. But the girls did admit to fabricating a few things, but they said that Maurice always caught them.
Yep.
Because they were trying to test Maurice too to see if he could legitimately figure out. This is an interview with Janet like 40 years later, right? And so she said, look, we did a few things, like we bent some spoons and placed them around to see if Maurice could figure it out. And because they were testing him as much as he was testing them.
Yeah. He had a camera running all the time and caught her bending spoons and
Yep.
trying to bend an iron bar.
Yep. And so both of them, that the Janet's testing Maurice is testing Janet, and he was able to figure out, hey, you're not being truthful here. So, but the rest of the stuff was legitimate. Now, I think it would be fascinating. I would love to see his tapes. I mean, does he? All I've seen so far is audio with photographs, still photographs. Why aren't those tapes released? That's what I'd like to see.
They're probably filed away somewhere.
Yeah, but you would think, if you're part of a psychic research, if you, as me as an investigator, anything like that would go on. My God, it would be like all over the place. So anyway, Ed and Lorraine Warren, there's two sides of the coin with them, and everything with them is demonic, but that's their perspective was Catholic. So, that everything seemed like there was never just a regular haunting with them. It was demonic always. I haven't been there, so I don't know, to this house. I haven't met Janet, but it doesn't seem to me to be demonic. It seems to me to be poltergeist activity and a haunting, hand in hand. And I don't think demonic activity, it just doesn't just fizzle out with the way this did.
Yeah.
And poltergeist activity does.
So, yeah. And then the two girls were going through that hormonal shift. So does that contribute to paranormal activity, poltergeist activity? I wonder if anybody's done any studies on that. It's just like, I mean, I was young once and going through that, and you get angry, pissed off, and moody all the time, and don't know what's going on, and then eventually it just goes away. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that hormonal shift didn't amp up her abilities, and then once it started to taper off, so did the activity. But
My personal belief is that it's happens when you have a child who is gifted somehow psychically, like a medium. And when they start going through that hormonal shift, things get bananas for them. So they already have all these gifts. They may never have tapped into them, or they may have ignored them, or maybe they said they have an imaginary friend and your mom's going, yeah, whatever, because they think it's all imaginary. And it's really not, because they're a medium, they're gifted, they're seeing things, they're hearing things are coming to them, right? Spirits. And then you go through that hormonal shift and those powers just go bananas for a while, and it draws all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think the best way I can describe it, and for all my fellow comic book nerds out there, it's like when the X-Men get their powers, they usually get them in their teenage years and it goes bananas, and then they send them to Xavier's school for gifted children or whatever it is, and then they get taught how to control their powers. Because, yeah, they've always had them, but then that hormonal shift kicks in, and then everything goes bananas, and parents are freaking out, neighborhood's freaking out, because little Timmy over here, just had his 12th birthday, but he could be able to bend spoons or move things in the house. But now all of a sudden he's tossing cars down the road. So they send him to school to get that under control. And then eventually it tapers off. And yeah, so that's my X-Men theory on this type of stuff.
Yeah, this poor girl, Janet, was so traumatized by what happened to her that she actually ended up spending a small amount of time in a psychiatric hospital in England. And that is something that's always bothered me, that people who have these paranormal things happen to them and gifts that go bananas end up being treated psychiatrically instead of getting into situations where people who understand those gifts can help them.
Yep.
And they're called crazy, or yeah, exactly. I would love, that's the study I would love to see done is, but it's one of those things that's hard to quantify. It's really hard. So she was treated for a while. In the last interview with her that I saw, which was, I don't know, so this was 1977, so 2017, I guess. Yeah. When she said, look, this affected our family, and it's still with us every day, as far as not the activity, but the memories of what happened there. It's not something that you just forget. And they've been in the limelight because of this all of these years, and they've suffered through this kind of activity. And if true poltergeist activity it's terrifying to deal with for the people who are experiencing it. It's not just a cabinet door opening. It's not just, a door closing, cabinets, things kind of moving around the house. It's bigger than that. And it's terrifying.
Yeah, it sounds like a full on assault all the time.
Yeah. And like I said, it's usually centered around one person in the house, but everybody's affected because you're all part of it. You're living with it every single day. So I feel bad for this family that they experienced this. I'm glad that it did ramp down. And so although they had little things happen in the house for years and years and years, it petered out, which it usually does. After that hormonal shift happens, then usually things calm down a little bit. Some families are plagued for a few years. Some families are plagued violently for a few months. This one went on for a little over a year, and that seems to be kind of the bell curve of most of these poltergeist activities. They usually don't go on for decades. So, but anyway, I thought this was a fascinating case. There were so many people involved and so much evidence that was recorded, and so much of it was sent out publicly. I just wish that they would release the actual film. the films of things moving around. That would be the most fascinating thing. And maybe he didn't have, obviously for personal reasons, maybe he didn't have a film camera in the bedroom. Maybe he was only in the bedroom with the girls occasionally. I don't know. He seemed quite drawn to Janet, and I think now I might be mixing up some of my research, but didn't he have a daughter named Janet who had died?
I don't know.
Yeah, so he was quite taken with her, like she would be his child. And I mean, God, he lived with them for long enough that I'm sure he was quite taken with the kids, and the whole family became his family.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of what shouldn't, well, not should be, but it's kind of a thing. You see a poor kid going through hell, and the only thing you can do is offer comfort.
Yeah. So anyway, look up this case called the Enfield haunting, and let us know what you think about it. There's people out there debunking it and bad mouthing the family as just not something. Even if I didn't believe in the haunting, it's not something I would do. These people they're real people, and they have lives, and be respectful. If you don't believe it, that's fine, but be respectful if you're gonna diss somebody and what their experiences are. But there's so much what seems to be credible evidence on this case that I can't imagine this was fake. Some of it maybe a little blown up, but I think this one's legit.
Yeah, I wasn't there, so I can't say anything about it. I find it interesting that it's bizarre to me. It's really interesting. So I'll have to look a little more into it.
There you go. All right. Well, that's it for today. Signing off.